Hello guys, good day. I am Aisen Percy Bulanadi from English 3.1. So for the last subtopic of the Unit 8, we have the kinds of language tests. So let's start. There are many different types of tests, each with its own goal and objective. So to be measured, these tests and criteria in a language program. So there are actually 5 sorts of tests. So the descriptions are provided specifically for the purpose of recognizing and distinguishing each types. Now, as a guide to creating such those tests, we have different kinds of language tests. We have the proficiency test, achievement test, diagnostic test, placement test, and the last one, aptitude test. So we have the proficiency test. So proficiency tests. These are designed to measure people's ability in a language, regardless of any training they may have had in that language. The content of a proficiency test, therefore, is not based on the content or objectives of language courses that people taking the test may have followed. So, the language proficiency test assess a person's practical language skills. Proficiency test share some similarities with achievement test, but rather than focusing on knowledge, proficiency tests focus on the practical application of the knowledge. So this type of test measures a language user's comprehensions, of course. So anyone can take a proficiency test, regardless of how they learn the language and where they believe they are in their level of competency. Proficiency test accurately measures the candidate's ability to use a language in real-life context. So as upon searching the internet, I found out that if you want to apply in DepEd as an English Teacher 1, you need to take the English language proficiency test first. So most of the items in that test focuses on the subject-verb agreement. Then we have the achievement test, the next one. So achievement tests are directly related to language courses. Their purpose being to establish how successful individual students, groups of students, or the courses themselves have been in achieving objectives. We have the 2 types of achievement tests. We have final achievement test and progress achievement test. So an achievement test assesses a student's language skills and show how far they've come. Unlike diagnostic, aptitude, and placement tests, achievement examinations only include material that a student should have learned in their previous classes. So typically, achievement examinations or tests are administered after a class has completed a chapter or a unit. So, or it can be at the end of the course, or at the end of the semester. So at the end of the semester, a teacher may offer a final test to determine how well a student has retained the content they were taught throughout the semester. So typically, achievement tests are graded and are intended to indicate how well a student is progressing in their language education. So we actually have 2 types of this achievement test. We have final and progressive achievement tests. So the final achievement tests are those administered at the end of the course. So while progress achievement tests are used to assess students' progress from the word itself, the development made by the students. So one way of measuring progress would be repeatedly administer final achievement tests, the increasing scores indicating the progress made. And then that's it about the achievement test. Then we have the diagnostic tests. So diagnostic tests are used to identify learners' strengths and weaknesses at a particular aspect of a language. They are intended primarily to ascertain what learning still needs to take place. So diagnostic tests are actually typically given at the start of a language learning course or the program to test the ideas presented before taking up a particular course or program, as we have been take this before in this subject, the diagnostic test. Then we have the placement test. So placement tests are intended to provide information that will help to place students at the stage or in the other part of the teaching program most appropriate to their abilities. So placement tests are used to assign students to different levels of classes. So certain proficiency exams and diagnostic tests can serve as a substitutes for interviews. So placement tests are used to place a student in the right class. So in a language curriculum, a level or a sector is referred to. Placement tests share some similarities with diagnostic tests. They are used for educational purposes and are administered before a course or program or of the study before they begin to study. So in this case, the application is a bit different because educators and administrators use placement tests to group language learners into classes or study groups according to their ability levels. So a placement test is a test given by a school to determine the academic or skill of a student, especially a new student. So in order to place them in the correct class in the university or in school, so students are required to take placement tests before registering in a particular school or university. Then we have the last one, we have the aptitude test. So aptitude test, the type of test given to a person prior to any exposure to the second language predicts a person's future success. So a language aptitude exam is used to determine a person's capacity or the overall ability to acquire a foreign language or second language and succeed in doing so. So an aptitude test is used to determine what a person is capable of or to forecast what a person can learn or perform with the proper education and training. So in this type of test, it requires or it indicates a person's ability to accomplish a specific task. So the aptitude test for senior high school tracks measures the innate ability or potential of a student to succeed in the senior high school tracks. So that is one of the example of aptitude tests in DepEd for the incoming K-12 learners. So that's it. That's the content of my report. Again, we have the five kinds of language tests. The first one, we have proficiency tests, achievement tests, diagnostic tests, placement tests, and the last one, we have the aptitude test. So that would be the content of the Unit 8, and again, I am Aizen Percy Bulanadi, the discussant of the kinds of language tests. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you learned something from my topic. And keep safe. Bye!